The great American character actor, Ossie Davis, once told Burt Reynolds that he was the only actor who was equally liked by both African Americans and the Ku Klux Klan. As uncomfortable as that sounds, it speaks to Reynolds' unique and undeniable appeal. His connection with the South was a key part of his enormous worldwide box office success, and 3 of his films in particular set him on that path.
How do you like them apples? Superstar.
This trio of films got to be known as the Hick Trilogy. They included the infamous John Boorman classic Deliverance, the moonshine actioner White Lightning, and The Longest Yard. A film so great, it was remade not just once, but 3 times. And for good measure, even had 2 titles.
They gave you $10,000 for shaving off your mustache on television?
Now when it comes to Reynolds, there's the pre and full moustache era. I personally prefer the pre-moustache era. It's the same for Charles Bronson. They both just came across as being more raw and less polished than they did in their later years, with their trademark tashes. Deliverance's enduring appeal hasn't waned since it was released back in 1972. Before this film, Reynolds was on the threshold of fame, largely known for his television roles in Riverboat, Gunsmoke and Hawk. Many superstars like Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson and Boorman favourite Lee Marvin were considered for the leads. But thankfully, budget restrictions meant Boorman had to cast Reynolds, the relatively unknown but upcoming Jon Voight, Ned Beatty and Ronny Cox in his first ever screen appearance as Reynolds' co-stars.
It's gonna be fun!
The shoot of the film was arduous at best, with many accidents and near fatalities. Due to budget and artistic decisions, the actors performed most of their own stunts at the film's treacherous location at the Chattooga River. Reynolds was severely injured after he got caught in an underwater whirlpool, cracking his tailbone after being jettisoned by the current, and Beatty nearly drowned.
Christ!
Although he would suffer a worse kind of emotional turmoil that would dog him for all of his career. From the scene that shall not be mentioned.
Most of the people that were on the film did not want us to do the scene, but the scene was pretty important to the movie, so we did it.
Boorman also took the rare step of shooting the film in sequence. When Reynolds asked why, Boorman replied, "In case one of you drowns." The film was met with roaring critical praise and Academy Award nominations for Best Film and Director. But criminally, none of the actors received any. I mean, poor Ned, after he had taken one for the team as well. Despite his star turn in the film, Reynolds blamed himself for the lack of award recognition due to his infamous cosmopolitan centerfold. Hollywood's hottest star bared all for the magazine, and despite the enormous exposure it gave him, it also dented his reputation, he felt, with the more priggish critics out there.
I was trying to save these 2 buddies of mine from getting knocked up by a homosexual.
Oh, praise God.
White Lightning was originally going to be Steven Spielberg's debut feature, but after working on pre-production for 2 months, he opted out to direct the Sugarland Express. He was replaced by Joseph Sargent, the man behind the original The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Reynolds plays Gator McCluskey, a good old southern boy, happily doing his time in prison for a series of moonshining convictions.
Donnie was killed. Your daddy thinks he was on account of the sheriff.
The film reunited Reynolds with Ned Beatty, in a far more different role this time, as the film's corrupt and murderous villain, Sheriff Connors.
Your brother's dead and you ain't going home for another year.
When McCluskey is informed that his younger brother is found dead, curiously in a deliberate canoe drowning, he discovers that the sheriff was behind it and makes a deal with the feds to infiltrate and find evidence against Connors.
Go on, would you look at that motor?
Armed with a supercharged Ford Custom 500, McCluskey enlists the help from some local low-level moonshiners as he tears up the town, intent on revenging the murder of his brother.
Damn it, no sheriff is gonna kill any brother of mine.
Fans of the series Little House on the Prairie will recognize Dabbs Greer and Matt Clark.
Ready? I was born ready.
And Sam Peckinpah regular Bo Hopkins plays fellow bootlegger Roy Boone.
Now you listen to me. If Ben Fairfield says that Washington's sending a man down here snooping around, he knows what he's talking about.
The film has some notable fans, including Quentin Tarantino, who used some of the music score in Kill Bill and Inglourious Bastards. But the film's biggest fan is none other than Agent Sterling Archer.
Sterling Archer?
Yeah.
Reynolds reprised the role of McCluskey a few years later in Gator, a sequel he also directed. But it would be the third film in this Hick Trilogy that would catapult him into the Hollywood big league.
I run a football team.
What football team?
My football team.
From the producer of The Godfather, Albert Ruddy, and director Robert Aldrich, the man behind the greatest buddy movie of them all, The Dirty Dozen, The Longest Yard gave Reynolds the opportunity to really show off all of his repertoire, including his football skills. The film's plot also shares a lot in common with The Dirty Dozen by pitting its protagonist against his superiors, who force him to train and lead convicts into battle. Although this battle would be on the football field.
In this institution, to get along, you go along.
Disgraced footballing legend Paul Crewe is sentenced to 18 months in a tough penitentiary for basically roughing up his sugar mummy, then dumping her Citroen Maserati into a bay, and then later assaulting 2 police officers.
Oh, look what we got here, a miniature cop.
Crewe is then persuaded to help train his fellow convicts by the corrupt football-mad warden, played by veteran Eddie Albert, for a tune-up football match with the guards. Despite his reluctance, Crewe really has no choice, unless he wants to carry on shoveling swamp muck for the next 2 years. The film is a comedy drama, but, like The Dirty Dozen, doesn't shy away from dealing head-on with themes of racism and injustice within the system. In this case, the prison system.
Anyone with any experience or desire, prison football team.
Among the heavies Crewe has to tame are future Bond henchman Richard Kiel, Robert Tessier, playing pretty much the same role he's always played, and Pepper Martin, most famous for beating up Superman. Other cast members include James Hampton, who plays Crewe's psychic, the Caretaker, Ed Lauter, the vicious prison captain, Mike Henry, who would later appear as the dopey son of Jackie Gleason in Smokey and the Bandit, and the Hill Street Blues' Michael Conrad.
Let's be careful out here.
Real convicts also featured in the production, and the then governor of Georgia, future President Jimmy Carter, was instrumental in getting the film's production team access to Georgia's Reedsville State Prison.
I understand a lot of the people have been hurt in this football game because you're playing for real.
Well, it's the only way to do it and make it look right is to just go out and hit. And
have they hit you, Burt?
Hit me a lot, yes. Don't hit the face.
Backs and ends, come with me. The rest of you stay here.
The Longest Yard is considered to be one of the greatest sporting movies of all time. And it's no surprise that it ended up being remade 3 times. Football hardman Vinnie Jones swapped American football for the real thing in the 2001 version called The Mean Machine, which was also the same title that the original Reynolds version was distributed as for its UK release. Then Adam Sandler had a go in 2005 with Reynolds appearing in a cameo. And there was even an Egyptian remake made a few years later. Reynolds, who at one time in his life considered a future playing pro football as a freshman before a series of injuries ruled him out, also played a footballer alongside country and western icon Chris Christopherson in Semi-Tough in 1977. But The Longest Yard remains a sporting movie icon, and its impact on popular culture was considerable back then and today. Reynolds, in his later years, was accused by his critics of becoming a caricature of himself, and his choice of movie roles, after he made Smokey and the Bandit in particular, were mixed to say the least.
You're about to make a lot of bad life decisions.
Really?
But the Hick Trilogy proved he was as cool and iconic as any of his peers from that decade. Hell, he even made it on a Springsteen record. Proof that he really was the Mean Machine.
Laugh it up, Burt.
I am.